Hey, welcome to season 3. And season 3, it runs concurrent to season 2 because season 2 is the journey that started in 2016. It was actually today's date in 2016, June 20th, that I started to have a dialogue with myself, and I didn't know how long it would go on and what it would amount to exactly. But it went on for 3 years, and it'll take a while for me to post all of that. I think right now in the posts soon I will be going on a journey, and it'll be obvious that it's not in real time. So now it is real time. It's June 20th, 2021. The world is in a much different place. I'm in a different place. I'm in a different space. And much of what I was trying to iron out and resolve in my physical life has mainly been resolved. And it's on to new challenges and a new stage. I haven't talked to myself for about 2 years. So I took a 2-year break. And in that time, a lot of things resolved that were challenges in the time that I was talking to myself. And a lot of what I tried to do and I tried to experiment with didn't really work, but I think sharing the journey is still, it could be helpful, possibly. And then, of course, now being in real time and still working with insights that come to me, or trying to figure out, what is this all about? Now I'm in the process of writing a book. So what I want to talk with myself about now is how to go about this. I have a lot of it written, but I guess I feel like talking with myself about it, or even reading some of it aloud, will help to move the process along, because my whole process the whole process I used along the way was to have it to be non-linear and flowy. And now putting something in a book, it has to go in a certain order or logical sense, or at least that's the sense that I have. Maybe it doesn't. And maybe it's more fluid than that. But I'm still in the book trying to, I guess, put points forth step by step that will make sense. And the point also is that it's to create an epiphenomenon in the reader's brain or the reader's life. And the strange thing is that this epiphenomenon may have already happened and likely already did. So whatever it is that bipolar mania creates in one's life, a lot of it is positive. And in a way, that's the epiphenomenon. And then I'm writing this book to say, that epiphenomenon of mania is related to, the way I see it, is related to human potential. It's related to all these other domains, but generally they don't get related, or I haven't found that they have been, or they have been in pieces here and there. And of course, the book that I'm writing would be pieces and things that I've thought of and relating to other pieces. So it's just another piece of the puzzle, because there are books out there that talk about these things. And one of them I read, the first one I read to realize that I'm not alone in my thinking at all, not even close. I read The Spiritual Gift of Madness by Seth Farber. And I read one by Paris Williams called Rethinking Madness, and also one by Edward Podville called Recovering Sanity, A Compassionate Approach to People in Psychosis. Something like that. And so reading those books, I realized that the thinking that I had from day one of getting a diagnosis, and then three, just sort of having fun and trying to create a new life for 3.5 years. And then I start reading about these perspectives that I realized other people had, that I had that whole time, and I just had no idea if I was the only one. I didn't really think so, but it took me a while to find that, because it's not within the mental health system of recovery. You know, it's called alternative for a reason. And more recently, I've been reading just a little bit, trying to get back into reading books a little bit, like paper books for my own brain. And I read some of a book called Psychiatry Disrupted, which has essays by multiple authors, and that gave me some new perspectives that I didn't know the nuances, the subtle and not so subtle nuances of what it meant to be anti-psychiatry, or whatever levels are underneath that. And so I learned, for example, that anti-psychiatry just doesn't think there's any point in trying to fix the system because it's broken. Perhaps that it's based on false premises. And so taking part in trying to help the system or working within the system is growing the system instead of just abolishing it. And so I realized that I'm not anti-psychiatry, because that's not how I've been participating in the last 10 years. And then there was another essay about how anti-psychiatrists should be a little bit more accepting of views that aren't anti-psychiatry, because we are a part of the same community if we've experienced something of the psych system or extraordinary experiences and maybe avoided the psych system like some people did, like for example Sean Blackwell, who did the Bipolar or Waking Up series. He was taking the psych ward, but he avoided getting trapped in it. And so did David Lukoff, who does the spiritual competency stuff, and he had a long experience and was able to stay away. And I think also another example of that, there's probably lots of examples, but another one off the top of my head is Ron Unger, and he also avoided being psychiatrized, if you want to call it that, but he does work within the system to educate, in that he has courses and trainings to train physicians and clinicians and whoever wants to take his courses. They're available to the public on, say, CBT for psychosis, cognitive behavioral therapy for psychosis. And those two terms didn't necessarily go together. And CBT is a clinical thing for, say, anxiety or depression or thought problems. But for psychosis, it's almost thought that it's just complete nonsense. So you can't work with nonsense. It's almost nonsense to work with the nonsense. And Ron Unger, for example, is saying, no, like it can be worked with, and with that training and perspectives, it can, say, get better in some ways. So there's a ton to all of that, and I touch on those things in my book. And back to what I was saying about how it's like preaching to the choir, because the epiphenomena in a way is mania, but then there's other phenomena that, like human potential, or say positive psychology, or even quantum physics, which a lot of people like to bring into what they're teaching and sharing. Those things to me haven't been much explored in how they overlap with mania. And so partly that's what I'm hoping to do and trying to do with this book. Maybe it'll be a bit clumsy, maybe it'll be a bit wordy, maybe it will be oversimplified, because a lot of the statements made, you could have a whole study on each, not each and every, but a lot of the bipolar insights that come through this sort of inferential and intuitive and extrapolative process of the mind in a creative state, especially in relation with like the world as it is today and the natural world. It's like partly nature mysticism, and that's why partly in the book I come to a point where I say, make up what you want in what your role is and what your connection is with whatever part of whatever reality you want, because it is so infinite and it is so complex and beautiful, and there are so many possibilities. So we as people with this sort of bipolar consciousness, or you could even call it bipolar intelligence, we can start to be more fluid with our roles, because we might be called advocates or creative people or artists, but we can be even more crafty, and people do that. They make up sort of their role or what it is they do, and they create a little cute tagline by their name, or not so cute. It could be serious, and that's what they do and what they practice and what they share. And I feel more of us, since we don't really fit into going back to the 9 to 5 per se, and that's being phased out anyway, we can be leaders in crafting our own roles, crafting our own realities from our insights, especially when we start to look at them and dialogue with them, with ourselves, if that's all we have available, but also with each other, if we can get to that place. And we can, and people are having dialogues and everything. I'm just curious about what I can put into a book or a course about what I've unfolded, and then also the supporting evidence, if you will, in quotes, that what I've been thinking or saying with myself isn't so crazy after all. And the more I say it with myself, the more I make it true and perceivable, and bringing it from the realm of mystery to the realm of real, whatever that means. And in a way, it's sort of like crafting bipolar consciousness through dialogue. And I even changed that word after I said it's more like drafting bipolar consciousness, because crafting seems quite concrete. And say I say to myself 100 insights or ideas or thoughts or extrapolations in a day, not that many of those are going to catch on and actually carry forward to the next day, or some might reemerge days later, and I'm not even going to be aware of that process really, because there's no way to keep track of that much new information channeling through consciousness. And that's why in one of the essays in the Psychiatry Disrupted book, talked about the abolition of psychiatry by chipping away at it, over time. And I said to myself a long time ago already that for me, and it talks in the essay about, we need more models than this model of sort of chipping away at it slowly over time, and eventually it'll be gone. And mine is not so much chipping away at, say, psychiatry, for example. It's actually through self-dialogue, adding so much content and context and a web of, drafting these bits that it sort of crowds out naturally the other things over time. So it's a a widening and a creating and a dialogue of one's own consciousness. And it's not really one's own consciousness. It's just with, one being or one body doing this process, because it does have a wider effect for sure. It just sort of crowds things out. And each person who's experienced mania or bipolar, they may have this whole sort of corpus or book of insights and that we've said to ourselves or to others, or just like this whole I can't think of the word, but this whole plethora of everything that we've said and things that we've created, things that have come through us. And if that were actually recorded somehow, we would all have a lot of content. And if we put that all together somehow, this is sort of hypothetical, and then sort of injected that all into the sphere of human thought that is there, then that would change people that are in that, say, 95% or 98% consciousness of what we think is real, and everything else is sort of a mystery. So we're all sort of mystery holders, and the point is, I feel, when we can create a flow of dialogue between us and within us and yada yada about these things too. Like the advocacy piece is important, the chipping away at whatever is not justified, or bringing lived experience perspective in, and not being anti-psychiatry, but sharing what could be helpful that could change the system. Like, I recently spoke with someone because they're going to be putting forth something about changing the process of when you get hospitalized and you are given your rights, being able to have a communication about that instead of just getting a piece of paper that nobody looks at. And I have that piece of paper, and I know that in a state of consciousness when I'm not with it, it doesn't make much sense, and I know there's no point in trying to pursue any of that to dispute why I'm there. And my point partly was like, well, if it's a really good process in the hospital and it's caring and it is helpful, nobody is going to say I don't want to be here. Not nobody, but that's not the way to say it. But most people are going to be like, well, I want to stay here and get reconnected to reality, because it's pretty hard to live in the mystery all the time. It's hard on the brain, it's hard on the body. So anyway, just to sort of wrap this up, yeah, I don't know, it's challenging to write the book without preaching to the choir. And it's more, again, just bringing in a bunch of context to be able to pass on some of my context. And writing a book that's, say, 200 pages and 40,000, 60,000, 90,000 words isn't much, because I have talked to myself for 600 hours in the videos or the vlogs or blogs, podcasts that I'm going to be sharing. Just takes time to post them and stuff. Plus everything that I've done in the last 2 years, and writing, and new insights happen all the time. Just something simple like drafting bipolar consciousness after thinking, crafting bipolar consciousness. Very small thing, but maybe that's the meme that takes off. I don't know. And yeah, so there's a lot to come, and I'm going to talk about a lot more and share the old stuff as well, knowing that it's about sharing the journey and the struggles, and now I'm in a place where there's going to be new things, but I also want to move more into this stuff, this context, rather than really experimenting and trying to survive, which is part of it. But anyway, thanks for listening, and I'll share more later. Again, I started this process 5 years ago on the day, and here I am back at it. I'm glad to be back, and I am really grateful for the people that have connected with me so far about this through synchronicity. Just it's all through synchronicity, and all the kindred spirits out there on all the different levels and different intelligences. And yeah, bipolar intelligence, you know, we only have a certain amount of capacity, it seems, all the time. And I feel bipolar is sort of a mutation that shifts certain intelligences to the background that we had before, and then brings ones to the forefront that we didn't have access to before. And then it seems to mutate back. And it's quite a challenging process for the brain, but these mutations happen, and it's more about evolution than it is about disease in my mind. And there's a perceived need to mutate like that and then mutate back, more so than I think it being an illness thing. But, you know, who knows? Who cares? I have no idea. I don't even remember what I said. Talk to you later.